Yo, it's Josh, and right now you locked in with the Success Game Podcast. One thing for certain, two things for sure. We're going to give you some game that's going to help you grow. Watch this.
This woman I have in the studio today is a local hero. She's one of my heroes already. She's been of service to Charleston community for a long time now, and it's evident that this is her God-given purpose in life because she hasn't stopped or quit yet. I think she will forever keep finding ways to serve and help her community, leading these young people to grow up and just be good and successful human beings in life. And I will add, we got to protect people like this at all costs. We must protect her at all costs. She keeps God first. She's a mother. She's a grandmother, author, humanitarian, also representing at all times the Crimson and Cream, Miss LaKeisha Barron Brown. Let's start from the beginning, Miss LaKeisha. What was your early life like?
So my early life started out pretty rough, right? And so as we all know, when we're brought into this life, we don't know what to expect because we're brought in up under someone else's direction. Yes. And that direction being that of my parents, right? And so very early on, I remember at 3 years old, seeing my father lying on the steps murdered. Wow. And here I am now, 47. I still have very visible moments and visions of what that looked like as a very young child. Yes, and this was in the inner city of Detroit, Michigan. So alongside of my father being murdered, I did a lot of transporting, meaning that my mother and I were often on the Greyhound bus going from Detroit, Michigan to Charleston, West Virginia, because this is where my mother originates from, is from West Virginia. And so I didn't really understand as a kid why I was often coming here, right? And then I later learned at 5 years old when I was asked, what did I want to do? Did I want to stay here in West Virginia with my family, or did I want to go back to Detroit? Mm-hmm. And so ultimately, being that I knew my mom was in Detroit, I said I want to go back home to my mom. And I really didn't know what that going back home to my mom looked like. And so as I returned back to Detroit at 5, what I realized now when I look back is that my purpose was to take care of my mother. Yeah. My mother, as well as my father, had a substance abuse issue. So I remember very vividly my mother either being drunk on the toilet from drinking vodka and her orange juice regularly, or either using cocaine, using crack. Yeah. In the early 80s, she was often freebasing. And so here I am as a young child, I knew what freebasing was. Yeah. I knew what the paraphernalia looked like, oftentimes going to the store with her with the paraphernalia. So it got to a point in my early life to where school wasn't of importance to me as far as going on a regular basis. My determination at that time was that I had to take care of my mom. Right, and so I remember very vividly on March the 1st, 1985, I had lost $20 at school. And if anyone know, in the 80s, $20 was a lot of money, right? But now you can barely even buy a Happy Meal or anything like that with $20 and some change, right? And so I was asked to go to the office to have the office staff call my mom and to verify that here's this 8-year-old kid who's brought $20 to school in 3rd grade. And so as my mother, informed the principal that yes, Keisha did bring the money, and she'll get it whenever she comes, when she's about to leave school. I then got on the phone with my mom, and very clearly in my ear, I heard her say, when you get out of school, go to the office, get your money, come home. And I know we're here and we're speaking face to face, and I know the audience won't be able to see this, but visionary, I want them to envision where they sit maybe like 5 steps away or maybe 10 steps away. Well, that's sort of where my apartment was from the schoolyard. And so when school was out, I went to the office as she stated, right? And living in a city, you often know you don't talk to strangers, right? That's sort of how you brought up, you stay to yourself.
For sure.
I was approached by a gentleman who happened to be Caucasian, and at that time in the inner city of Detroit, you were either Puerto Rican or you were black. It wasn't too many people I remember being different than that. Right. And I was asked to go back in the office with this individual. And being that I was raised to stay in a child's place, I remember sitting outside, and I remember seeing all these people behind me being adults running back and forth, and what I now know to be in shock, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember pulling away from the school thinking, well, gosh, my mom must have got arrested, because the person did identify themselves as a police officer. When I talk about distance, my house was literally a few steps away from the school. And so as I sat in the police station, I remember looking at this officer type up some things. And I was watching, but again, sort of staying in the child's place. And probably about an hour or so, if I were to guess, I was taken into another room for me to then learn my mother had been murdered. So by the age of 8, I am now without both parents. And so when you asked what my life was like, my life was sort of turned upside down in a matter literally of moments. But, you know, what I realize now is that my DNA prepared me for that, right? And when I speak of DNA, I don't talk about my physical and my biological DNA. I talk about my determination and ambition. I didn't understand as a young kid why I was exposed to all those things. What I realized is that my foundation prepared me for what was going to come thereafter. So as I was 8 years old, without both parents in the inner city of Detroit, wondering where I was going to go from there, my family from West Virginia, whom I had been with so often, right? Traveling back and forth from Detroit to Michigan. Traveling back from Michigan to West Virginia. They were my rescue, and they brought me from Detroit to West Virginia. So as I may have been an 8-year-old kid chronologically relocating to West Virginia, because of my DNA, because of my circumstances, I probably was about a 13-year-old child mentally when I entered in West Virginia. So that's the early part of my childhood of trying to figure out how I was going to survive, not knowing that my parents had almost prepared me for that because of things I had seen while they were in their active life of addiction.
Yeah. You just sent cold chills through me with that. I couldn't have told you that's what you was about to say. Wow. Yeah. Damn. That changed the whole landscape of this interview. Now you just coming out like that. Man, that's crazy. That's inspiration off the top for me. But and now I ask you, who were some of your biggest inspiration in your life? You know what I mean? Especially early at that time where you had lost maybe who most people look up to the most, mom and dad, or mom or dad. You know what I mean? Who did you start looking to after that point?
So let me go back a little bit. When my mother was living, my aunt, who lived here in West Virginia and still is my mother's sister, many times I didn't go to school, right, when my mother was living. And a lot of times I didn't go to school because I was more worried about my mother, trying to take care of her, trying to make sure she was safe. And the words that always rung in my head from my aunt was, LaKeisha, you have to go to school. You have to get an education. So if I would say the most influential person in my life as far as making sure that I did not give up on myself and did not give up on my academics was my aunt, who I later, and I'll talk about that more so in my book, who I later then called my mom. But I would say that the foundational component of me making sure that I was successful academically, I have to give that credit to my aunt because she made sure that no matter what my circumstances were, that I was going to be able to prevail. And as long as I had an education behind me, I was never going to fail. So I would say from there would be my aunt inspirationally.
Speak her name. What's her name?
Her name is Linda.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Big shouts out to Miss Linda wherever, you know what I mean? I don't know if she's, passed, but if it weren't for her, I don't know where, you know what I mean? Where would you be or would you be here? You know, it's just so many things that change. And like I say, that's why we got to be careful giving credit when we give credit, because a lot of this stuff changes the course of life, LaKeisha. You know what I mean? Yeah. You don't know life without her. So it's so imperative and important that she was there at that moment. Because, just that 8 by 8, you had enough to be like, man, I'm done. I done seen enough, done. This is crazy. I can't believe that, LaKeisha. But, okay, so we'll go here with it. What college did you end up going to? You know, what was that like? I'll say that for you. In high school, as you started to get better and better in school and about being, professional with it, not even professional, but being a young woman about it, going to school, handling your business. As you started doing that, did high school start to prove more and show you more of your value in life? Like, I can do something now. I know I got it,
Yeah, so academically, if I were to brag on myself, I feel that academically I've always done well in school. I experienced a lot of pressures in school because I went to predominantly white high schools once I got here and moved out to the Nitro area and faced a lot of racism. So that was very tough for me because I had never faced that coming from Detroit. Even when I moved here in elementary, I don't remember being judged because of the color of my skin. So it wasn't until I got to high school that I began to face those adversities and had to figure out how I was going to overcome those. And so transitioning from Nitro, I then went over to South Charleston High School. So it gave me a better feel of my purpose as being an African-American young lady in school, besides just being an athlete, because that's what I was seen for initially was, here's this black athlete, let's use her up in this white setting. But I realized my purpose was much greater than that. So when it came time to really choosing a school, if I were to be honest, I didn't want to go to a school that was a PWI because I got tired of being around that environment. So ultimately, I wanted to go to a HBCU. I had gotten accepted to several HBCUs, but my sister felt that I wasn't ready for that environment. She thought I wasn't very personable. She thought I was very standoffish. And what they didn't know is I was a hurt kid, right? I was a hurt kid who was very angry. Right. I use these words now that when my mother's casket closed, so did everyone else's mouth. Yeah. And as we know, in the African-American community, mental health, home issues are never really discussed, right? And so a lot of my anger and my behaviors were overlooked because I was doing well academically in school. Right. So school was sort of my outlet to get away from all the other stuff that I had endured and that I may have currently been enduring during those times. And so what landed me to the university that I proudly hold on to now, I ended up going to Marshall University. The Thunder and Herd, we are, Marshall. I am a proud alumni of Marshall University and very thankful for that experience because it allowed for me to grow into who I am today. Yeah.
And so, and of course, I'm sure we probably excelled in college. You know what I mean? Got out of there and did it. Was that a cool experience, college? Did you?
Well, ironically, when I was there, I didn't like it. So
you didn't like it?
No, so that's what's crazy. Yeah. I didn't like it at that time because I still didn't want to be there.
Right.
But 2 years in, I was like, you're 2 years in. Yeah. You only got 2 more years to go, so make it be what it is, right? And so my latter years of school, I got pregnant with my first child. And so she truly was my inspiration that I have to finish school.
Gotta finish,
I have to finish school because I have someone else now that's dependent upon me. And so it wasn't until years later of graduating, because then I went on to get my master's degree once I got pregnant with my second child, which is John. When I really look back, that's where all my friends started. You know, that's when my true friendships. Yes, I still have some friends from my earlier years of life, but who I would call my sisters or my brothers or my long extended family, that happened at Marshall University because that's when I began to mature as a woman. So when I look back at Marshall was probably one of the better places of my life that I would say was my strength of growth.
Yeah. And this is where now, what made you start pledging in school? That crimson and cream you speak of. What made you start pledging? And did that help any? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let me rephrase these words for the rightfulness of our sorority. Yeah. Delta Sigma Theta does membership intake.
Okay.
So in my collegiate years, I actually didn't become a Delta.
You found them later.
Right. I aspired to be a Delta, and I had a lot of influential people in my life during that time at Marshall University that were Deltas. But it wasn't until I had finished grad school that I became a member of Charleston Institute Alumni Chapter here in the Charleston area. And so what inspired me about Delta was, number one, they're all about social action and social justice and giving back to our communities. And I know that one can give back to their community whether they're in a sorority or not. Yeah. But the larger holistic component of what Delta stands for, who I am as a woman, and who our 22 founders are, I know that was me. Right. And so it wasn't so much about what Delta can give to me. It's what that I can add to what Delta already, who we are back to our community. And so I say that to say that I will always be very thankful and be very proud for the opportunity of being a Delta. But I also say this, every sorority is just, we all founded upon some of the same principles. Right. But for me, the Crimson and Cream was better for me.
Hey, ain't no side like my side.
Yeah.
But, and you know, speak quickly on that. What's it like, that the embracement from them? You know what I mean? When you get that, even, and I bet it's even more awkward when you're really a grown woman with your own kids. You're not so much more looking for acceptance as like you was in college. You know what I mean? In college, you just want to feel accepted. I don't care what it calls for, but I just hate feeling weird sitting over here by myself, or you know what I mean? Nobody to party with, whatever the case may be. What was it like for them embracing you? Like, who would you give the advice to, you know what I mean? If they feel certain this way, go check them out. Not even them, but just go check out something like a sorority. Because, you know, we give the Crips and the Bloods and all that, you know, the bad names. All gangs, you know, the police are generally called the fraternal order. You know what I mean? Gang. You know what I mean? If you want to put it in these kids' terms, you know what I mean? But if you want to take it out in kids' terms, then you would have to call the Crips and the Bloods organizations and stuff. So it only, either way it goes, they're all bigger, you know, something bigger than ourselves that we embrace and take on like it's, you know what I mean? Like our parents told us to do. Right. You know what I mean? So who would you recommend this stuff to? Because I know it's not for everybody per se. Who would you know, say if you like this, you go do it?
I mean, I feel that for any organization that someone were to join, they should research it first.
Research.
And find out if that's what's in the best interest of them.
Yeah.
Delta was in the best interest of me, but I'm very mindful and very cognizant that it's not in the best interest of everyone.
Exactly.
So I will always tell anyone that is thinking about joining a sorority, understand that sorority, and then do some observation
Right.
of who's in the community and who's representing those organizations, and get to know those people, get to learn what they're doing and watch what they're doing. Because ultimately we all are we all are a service organization.
Right.
And so we're all out in the community, and we all should be providing service to our community. And so that would be my words of inspiration to any young lady that wants to join in a sorority. Don't do it because you know somebody that's a Delta, or you know somebody that's an AK, or
Exactly.
you know somebody that's a Zeta.
Exactly.
Do it because you've done your research,
Exactly.
and that's what best suits you as an individual.
Right, right. And that's real special that you say that, because a lot of times, a lot of these kids right now, especially with the social media era and this TikTok era, don't do it because somebody else did it. You know, you can't move like that, and like that'll have you in a lot of hurt and wasting a lot of time in general.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you live in somebody else's, what they path is. That's not for you necessarily.
Right.
But I wanted that because that's so important. Like I told you, a good buddy of mine, Craig Glover, he's in a frat or whatever, and so I learned and realized that these frats and sororities, they quietly, they make up a lot of the big percentages of some of the hierarchies of these cities and stuff. So, you know, it's nothing to, you know, get in there and embrace them, because they're already doing high level stuff. It's you know, no you know, crap going on, no sideways stuff. Like she said, these people are, some of them are about their community, some of them are about different things, but all of them nonetheless are legitimate, you know, organizations that just trying to move life forward. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to highlight that for all the young girls or young dudes that's, you know, thinking they about to go to college and they want to, you know, tamper with it or you know, because like I say, one thing for certain, two things for sure. Once they got you in them things, you better be serious about it. You hear me? It comes with obligations for sure.
For sure.
So tell me a little bit about what was your early professional life like? Like how many jobs you done been through, Miss LaKeisha? What you know, how far we done went to find the right thing, our calling, you know?
So when I talk about jobs, I think my resume is pretty extensive, and it's not because I've been job hopping. It's just because I've been elevating myself in my profession. And so with my degrees, I have an undergrad in criminal justice corrections with a minor in sociology and legal studies, and then my master's is in correctional counseling. So I've done anywhere from multicultural counseling to actual, well, I'm not a licensed therapist, let me go back. I've done anything from multicultural counseling to practicing therapy in settings at a hospital. I've worked in a criminal justice setting. And so now where I am, I'm a program manager of a nonprofit organization that focuses on career and college readiness for high school students.
Yeah.
And so my degrees have allowed for me to have a multifaceted type of experience professionally.
Yeah. And like you say, what I tell somebody, the more you can do, the more usable you are. You know what I mean? And like I say, I shouldn't say usable, but I already said on previous episodes, either you're going to get used or you're going to get misused. But if you can't be used at all, you're useless. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you know, that's all that it I don't want to say it all feeds back into each other, but your eye and corrections help you see, like, even I don't know if you were juvenile or not, even if you were young adults or, you know, adults or whatever, you still see a need, and that's the biggest place where you got to go look for it.
Right.
You don't got to go to South Charleston or Hurricane or Taze Valley to figure out what's wrong with West Virginia. You know what I
Right.
mean? You got to go where it's pain and where it's some struggle. You know what I mean? So let me know now. So now that you're done with college and all that, this is how the story. After you're done with college and all that, and you stated that you was having kids in that time, what was the family life like? You know what I mean? What, you know, as far as your kids and you know, raising them and going through the process, what was that like for you?
So I'm going to fall back on my DNA, determination and ambition. Shortly after college, under my graduate degree, I was married. And I married my college boyfriend, who is the father of my older two children. And I'm going to be very careful in this setting of what I say for many different reasons.
That's fine.
I would just say the relationship didn't work. And for that reason, I was a single mother raising two small children by myself.
Right.
But I made sure that they didn't recognize our struggle, because I kept them heavily involved in activities, because I understood that their life wasn't my issue didn't have to be their issue, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It does.
So it's ironic, because I remember as they were growing up, everybody thought they was rich, right? They would always tell me, y'all are rich, and I'm thinking, no, you're far from being rich. But again, my issue didn't have to be theirs.
Yeah.
And so I had to weigh heavily on my determination and ambition to make sure that no matter what it was, my kids were going to be okay.
Exactly.
I wasn't going to let another obstacle prevent me from being successful.
Right.
Again, I go all the way back to losing my parents. That was the first obstacle that I had to endure. And so if I always looked at it, if I was able to get through that, there's nothing that's going to hold me back. And so being a single parent wasn't going to hold me back. Being without child support for a while wasn't going to hold me back. Having water shut off, having lights shut off wasn't going to hold me back.
Preach, woman, preach. Oh, my goodness.
What I knew was my kids didn't ask for this life. And so the life that I needed to give them was what I was going to aspire to make sure they had. And so with my first 2 children, I worked very hard, whether it was working several jobs, to make sure that they never felt the pain that I may have been enduring as a single mom.
Right. That's so beautiful you say that. Because like you say, a lot of times these young girls, they want to make, because they done fell out with the child's dad, they making that the kid's problem anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's happening too much. Yeah. And you know, to me, it's a little bit alarming, because it's like, first and foremost, you guys aren't doing any research, and, you know, research word again, that's a buzzword for you young people. Do some research on anything. But definitely. A lot of these people ain't even researching the people that they, you know, laying down with or whatever, you know, don't even know who they are. Yeah. And next thing you know, oh, I'm pregnant. Well, if you would have knew who dude was, you would have known he treat his mom and his grandma like crap anyway. That so part. What you thought he was gonna do with you? You know, they don't really, you know, go off the context clues anymore. And then, like I say, then you leave a kid there to I don't want to say you make them miserable, but it's hard for me to be, Mom, you want to go? And she like, no, stop, Josh, stop. I'm cool, right? That shakes your spirit. That shakes your soul. Like, dang, man, you know.
It shapes their life.
Exactly. And that's the stuff that they remember. I promise you. You want to know what a kid remember? It's probably everything bad, nothing good. I promise you. Listen, that's just how life works. You know what I mean? But I just wanted to make sure you like when you said that I mean, buzzers went off in my mind, because I'm like, that's what they really need to hear. You know, I didn't make it my kids' problem.
Right.
My reality wasn't their reality. Right. You know what I mean? And like you say, you did so good at raising them, because one thing for certain, 2 things for sure, there's 2 types of wealth. We of course we got money, but what's your soul like? You know what I mean? Part. Your soul rich, you know what I mean? And them babies was out there and they soul was rich as ever, and them kids, you couldn't tell the kids that they wasn't rich, because look how they act. Yeah. Look how they act. You know, smiles all on their face. So it's just the little things like that they overlook, and that's the smallest thing that makes such a big contribution to these children's life.
And you know, and Josh, if I can add on for a second, as I raised them initially by themselves as a single mom, I have to give credit to my significant other that came later in my life that took on the role of being a father figure to my children, that they looked up to probably sometimes more than me, if that makes sense, who later then became the father of my 3rd child. So the beginning stages of being a single mom struggling, thankfully I had someone to come in to help out with that as well. Right. So I don't want to take all the credit for who they are, but I will take credit for the development of who they became. Yeah.
And that's one thing that, you know, people don't realize either, is it takes a village, honestly. Mm-hmm. You could have been so bitter. Mm-hmm. You know, of course I don't know the man's name, but you could have been so bitter. There didn't have to be a 3rd child there. You could have been bitter. Yes. Like, man, I'm done with it. You know what I mean? Until I can absolutely know I'm going to marry somebody, or I'm going, you know, until I can tell they right. And a lot of times when you're making your credentials that hard, you never find nothing. Yeah. You know what I mean? But that's what you deserve to do after being left in these situations. You know what I mean? And not left because you're a survivor. You was going to do what it took. But still, you know, I know you didn't sit up and tell yourself one day, I want to have kids and I want to raise them by myself.
That part.
You know what I mean?
Never thought it.
So, you know, I just say, you know, this is what people ain't talking about a lot, you know.
And if I can give a woman an inspiration, Josh, when I speak of the life I had with my children's father, I went from having $100,000 in my home to one day having $0 in a matter of a day. And so I had to figure out how I was going to make it with a brand new house, 2 small kids, and a brand new car. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's not to brag, but it's to give women the understanding that we can do it. Yeah. You just have to figure out how, right? And what I if I were to give another woman an inspiration, would be this: don't raise your children to be children. We're raising our children for adulthood.
I'm almost done with it.
Yeah,
I
don't
be
raise your
telling my
children-
girl that
don't
all
raise your
the
children to be
time.
children. Raise them to be for their adulthood, because that's when we're no longer in that picture.
Right, because I would have the visual I give to them. I say if this is life, they young for about that much of it.
Right.
You got to raise them to be the person you
raise
want to
them for
see them
adults.
be. You know what I
Right.
mean? Not who they are, because a lot of times, these young mothers get caught up in being the best mom to these children that are young. I say, sweetheart, you can't do that.
No.
You're going to kill yourself like that. Trying to be the world's greatest parent. And then, no, you got to do what's right for you. And them babies got to come on. If you got to get on that bus, I hear girls talking about, I ain't got no ride to get nowhere.
Yes, you do.
The KRT been running.
Or your feet.
Or your feet.
Or your feet.
This stuff, this is stuff they can't take from you. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about what made you start going into the community. What was that first time you said, talking to yourself, LaKeisha, I don't like how that looked.
Yeah.
I got to get out here and change it. When was that first moment that you said, man, let me go do something about, the world that I'm living in?
Probably when I started seeing my son hang in areas that I didn't feel comfortable with him being in. And I realized that it's not just if I want to make an impact in my son's life, if I wanted to make an impact in my son's life, then I had to make an impact in those whom he was also hanging around.
Exactly.
Because what I saw was, as my son came from a home that eventually had two parents in it, some of his friends' families did not. No. And so I don't know if sometimes he felt like he didn't want to seem like the oddball out, so he would gravitate to children who were different than he. And not to ever put down anyone's circumstances or situations, but I knew that the direction my son was headed in wasn't where he had been raised at.
Right.
So I felt like that instead of me fussing, arguing, and cussing, and all those different things, that I had to make a difference not only in my son's life, but the rest of the community. And so that's sort of what sparked my interest to start getting out of here. One, he was an athlete in the area, so I was always seen in that capacity of going to games, whether it's football games, basketball games, track meets. And so I think that's really where my desire is. Not that I didn't have it, but it was the desire and the willpower to get out there and say, okay, do it. And initially I always called myself a backdoor advocate, because I would sort of stay in the background and do things and not let people know. And then I gradually came to the front to make my face more known.
Right. And like I say, help is help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Help is help. And listen, I don't, because there's a lot of people, LaKeisha, everybody ain't Josh's, there ain't yous. You know what I mean? A lot of people can't stand in front of it and speak to the masses or speak on, even from a place of leadership. They know the problem, but that's not their part. You know what I mean? It take people like us getting out in front of it and saying, that's cool. Pass the ball to me. I got you. I'm going to take the shot,
Yeah.
And I also thought it was strong that you say, because I often tell the kids now, and I tell a lot of the parents I'm around, when they start talking bad about the little kids, or saying, well, you can't hang out with little Darren, or you can't hang out with little Jeremy, or, they might say stuff like that. But I'm like, listen, you can't go removing people out their life, because you're not going to do that. Like I said, this much is the little, this is the life, this much is the child, I should say. So when these kids come around, and we know they bad as hell. You hear me? You kidding me?
Product of their environment.
Exactly. We know they need somebody to, go ahead and tap that, something.
Right.
But it's like, I got to let my son be who he is to this kid, because this kid sometimes, you never know when there's a kid that has LaKeisha's story in the early, and they just trying to figure it out. I know you didn't necessarily have to go through a lot of, but there's some kids who never heal from that type of trauma.
Right.
And they spend the rest of their adolescence trying to figure it out. That's so hard, and it's so hard and sad to process, because it's just like, damn, nobody ever wants to stop the track and say, listen, hold on, give this baby some love.
Right.
Nobody gave him the love.
Right.
Y'all told him how bad he was. You told him he ain't gonna never be nothing. Let's try something different.
Right.
You know what I mean? But all of our kids gonna have that one friend that we like, probably not supposed to be hanging around them.
Right.
But the second you go, you don't hang around them no more. We don't know what happens to that kid, first and foremost. And we're not training our kids perfectly, because once they get to college, LaKeisha, there's going to be a roommate who wild as all get out. You hear me? Want to do everything. You have to know the discretion. You have to have that as a kid. I love putting the kids out early in situations, because if I can't send you nowhere and depend on you to stand on what I raised you on, then what are we really doing here? You know what I mean? Yeah. We got to make sure our kids is trained. And not only that, they can go out and see whatever. That don't mean I did nothing.
Right.
I seen whatever. I didn't do nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what's important, and I feel like they get away from it a lot. So at this point, we're gonna go a little bit deeper. And this is, you know, like I say, you speak on it how you want, because we healing daily. You know what I mean? Right. But for all those who don't know by this point, this is John Brown's mom, late great John Brown mom. Talk to the kids about, you know, I know you can't speak for him. Mm-hmm. But she just already stated it's out of what she's seen from her son that made her go do stuff in the first place. What type of light was he in this community? You know what I mean? And I want to start by saying, you know, if there, you know, haters can hate. I hope there's none. That when you hear the story, I hope there's none. But regardless of anything, I love him because, you know, I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
I love what you're doing, and I can't, you know what I mean? And I know some of it's on your own, but when I know you go this hard, it's because of, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Job well done, you know what I mean? So just talk about the light he was for a second, if you don't mind, you know.
Well, let me say this, Josh. As a mother, right, we're human, right? So I know there's some people who didn't like him,
right?
Still may not speak good of his name, and that's quite okay,
right?
Because who I knew John to be was this. John was a hurt kid. Right, he was a hurt kid that felt abandoned in many different ways. He was, again, didn't have the male figures in his life whom he desired so heavily to have. And so what I saw was that because he was hurt, he poured so much into his community that the kids that he was trying to help was the hurt kid that he was wanting people to help him as. And so John was a giver. You know, oftentimes I found myself often like, why don't you give to yourself sometimes and stop worrying about everybody else? But what I realized, Josh, was that it's not about who I wanted him to be. It's who he was already destined to be.
He meant to be.
Yeah. So he was a giver. He would literally give the shirt off his back. He would literally give you the last dollar. Now, I'm gonna always say he will also get on your nerve, right? He was a comedian, but I mean, he had that part about him that he would get on your nerves sometimes. But at the end of the day, you knew if he liked you, and you knew if he didn't, because he was genuine. But even if he had a problem with someone, he still was going to try to find a way to help them, even if they didn't know he was the one that was helping him. And so, as you described me as a humanitarian, I give that credit to my son as well, because that's who he was. He was a humanitarian, not just for young kids, but for anybody. Right. And when it became a reality to me was at his funeral. And I seen so many people there, and as a mom, that's when I had to eat my words. When I talked about how much he gave to other people, I really saw what that meant, because they gave back to him on a day that was so important to our family.
Yeah. Wow. You said I had to eat my words, because it is. It's different, you know, feeling it for yourself, especially as a parent. You always see the light in your child, you know what I mean? But damn, y'all came here by the hundreds and seen my son's light.
Yeah.
Man, blessed be to God, you know what I mean? And like I say, always thankful for him, because, you know, of course, without you, there's no him, but this LaKeisha, there might not, you know what I mean? And I feel it's so important to state that she could have curled up in a ball, been crying on the couch. If it isn't evident, or son passed not too long ago, rest in peace, but, you know, just think about it. That's 3 of the most influential people in your life ever. We've already talked about LaKeisha's loss. Any point in time, she could have tucked her tail and said, this is getting too hard. You know, like we say, we speak on mental health. There's probably was days, and, you know, I don't ever, but and I know as a person who's been in the system before, whether it be foster care, prison system, or whatever, there's days where I was, you know, thinking about like, man, is life even worth it? Not that is it worth it, or not that I want out, but this just ain't what I
envisioned.
Yeah, we getting further and further away from what I thought this was. You know what I mean? Day by day. So for you to, you know, stand your ground, and it's almost like you lifted weights. You hear me? Because you just put some more on the bar and said, I'm gonna get this too. You know, this go up too. Yeah. So I like I say, I want to highlight that though, because people can stop. She understands she has a purpose. She understands it, because one thing for certain, 2 things for sure, you can't, you got me, man. You can't be in her line of work and you're anything but selfless. She has to be so selfless. So selfless, man. At any point she could have saw and thought for herself, I've did enough. I don't know. You hear me? 99% of the people she helped, she ain't got no blood to them. They ain't grow up in her house. She's out there, you know, and I'll take it to, because I when I thought about you and I was hearing about your story, you know who I immediately identified you with?
What's that? Who's that?
And listen, and this is not to say her son was Tupac, but Afeni Shakur.
Thank you.
Because she led. You're welcome. She led at such hard times. You know, she's in prison with the Tupac in her belly, fighting on behalf of 14, 15 Black Panthers. That's what the latest little memoir revealed. You know, and it showed her part. But she could have stopped. She could have stopped so many times. She had dealt with real bad drug addiction. She could have stopped. But, you know, whatever she did, you know, she left the world a better place than it was, and there was so much pain in her life. But, you know, like I say, you're strong for other people. In that documentary, they say she said Tupac used to just come to me, and he a lot of times would be mad, like, dang, you done gave everybody all our food, and what we gonna eat? You know what I mean? Right. But that's the type of person she was. She knew no limits to love or giving. Right. She just gave. Right. And no, my family blessed that I'm in the same house as them. They covered. Regardless, I gotta help them, everybody. You know what I mean? So I just, like I said, I can't big you up enough for that, LaKeisha, because it's so many reasons to stop. Do you know what I mean? And often when tragedies happen, people will take it as a reverse sign and say, that's life telling me I don't need to be doing. That's life telling you go harder.
That part.
I gave you some pain. I wanted to fuel you and eventually turn it into joy, because they wonder how your smile stays so big. They wonder how it's genuine. You know what I mean? That's because I know my purpose. You know what I mean? Then I know it's bigger than me, or you know what I mean? That's the stuff you have to know to keep going as hard as you've been going. You know?
But Josh, if I can intervene for a second, I remember when John got sick with kidney, when it was revealed that John had kidney disease. And I remember saying, someone told me they were sorry that it was happening to him or happening to us as a family. And I said, don't say that you're sorry. And they looked at me real strange. They said, why? I said, because what I know is everything happens for a reason. And I may not know today what the reason is, but eventually, whatever the lesson is for me to learn, it will be revealed.
It'll reveal itself.
I just need to be patient, you know. And so what I realized is that as I watched my son go through a disease that was unfamiliar to all of us as a family, he being one of the youngest cousins to ever pass in our family, as far as our close-knit family, it was a lesson that was for me to learn. And the lesson was, no matter what you go through, because I never thought I would be able to make it through losing a child, right? Because losing parents, I was young. You was young. You know, but to lose something that you actually birthed. I remember I used to always say, I don't know if I'm gonna make it if I ever lost my kid.
Exactly.
You know, and so that was the lesson that I had to learn, that I was okay. I'm not okay that I've lost my son, but I'm okay to keep going. I'm okay to help other people. I'm okay to give everyone else a motivation and inspiration to know that it doesn't matter what you go through. It's about how you choose to react and respond to the circumstances in which you're placed in. And so I feel like losing my son to COVID was my eye-opener for me that I can't give up and I won't give up. So yeah, that's where I am today, is that his death has given me more strength. And you're right. People often wonder, how do I smile? How am I okay? And I tell people these things. I have more peace in my life today than what I've had in 40-some years of my life. And so when you have peace in your life, there's no obstacles that can ever hold you down, because that's my guiding force. That and my DNA.
Bless you, bless you, bless you, man. Whew, you tearing me up over here. And, you know, like I say, another thing that we can't belittle. It takes so much, because one statement that's so true in life, and I think a lot of people, everybody's almost felt it, but there's things that you can't control. Yeah. There's just simple uncontrollables. You know what I mean? But you gotta commend this woman, because it's one thing for your child to be in danger or anything. She couldn't protect. You know what I mean? When you're left helpless almost, and you can't do nothing and intervene, and you still find a way. Because that's what draws the bitterness out of us. Even when you see these young dudes in these gangs and the gang violence, they just want to go back at the same person because that would give them, you feel me? Feel like it gives them some solace or something. There is none of that. There is no revenge to take. You know what I mean? But I'm a firm believer. That's just like we call him Man, Emmanuel Helliger, Tayon Howell Mooch, my guy from Ohio, and people like John Brown. We often believe that God said, let me take you and put you on the other side of the playing board so you can give them some help.
Yeah. Yeah.
They need your help from the others. You hear me?
I agree.
There's interference being ran.
I agree.
And sometimes we don't realize it on our bad days. And I got to look up and say, damn. Whatever I did, Mooch still put that there for me, or you know what I mean? It's so crazy how it works, and people, I'm forever evolving in my thoughts in life because if you stop growing, essentially, that's definitely if you don't let your mind keep growing, then you might as well be good as gone. You know what I mean? Because we forever learn, we're forever students. You know what I mean? We can teach, but we still got to be students of the game. Yeah. I heard you talking about how you was with your grandson earlier. My dad always said you can learn from a baby if you want to. You want to, you know what I mean? They'll show you certain things. What are you looking at? What are you looking for? You know what I mean? But yeah, man, just, like I say, nothing but respect and much love for you to keep going because like I say, a lot of these kids don't realize what wouldn't be in maybe the West Side or just in Charleston in general if people like LaKeisha Barron Brown don't step up for y'all. And she don't say, hey, they're my babies. You hear me? Because I promise you, people like her, they can't do work like this and just say, well, no, I just helped the kid. They know that kid. I watched him. I watched him grow. Yeah. I didn't watch him. He couldn't shoot when he got here. You hear me? Now the boy can't stop. Right. So when you in somebody like this, you've definitely watched it happen, and you just you know the people that you're working behind. You know what I mean, or working for, and always being of service to your community. It's just crazy. Yeah. So And like I put in my notes, I wanted to say to you, though, this shows me just your strength and perseverance. Because like I say, I only knew about John. I could have never told you that I knew that your parent, that much early trauma is stupendous. I don't know how you overcame it. I don't want to make it like, there ain't people in third world countries that never, but at the same time, man, for here, that's a hell of a hurdle to hop, and not over you hopped it. You almost won the race. You know what I mean? It still continues, but I mean, you're in a good spot where you sit now, Yeah. And I wanted to tell you, you get life though. You get it. You get it. A lot of people still don't. They'll sit here for time and time, and a lot of people like to do this, Josh and LaKeisha and what's between us. But when people like you see stuff, and you can get mad at Josh, but you might be able, I see Josh, but behind him I see all the kids. Yeah. You know what I mean? You'll never let fury, rage, or any of that condemn your mind or take over or make you useless. You know what I mean? Right. You'll never let that stuff get to you. I know that just from meeting you in just this 40 minutes. Yeah. You ain't gonna let that overtake you never. You know what I mean? But it takes a resilient soul for that. I don't know if you even realize.
Thank you.
So, but and listen, we got a good read here if you guys haven't already peeped in the front. Tell me a little bit about your book.
So, Through the Eye of a Cracked Soul is my autobiography.
Through the Eye of a Cracked Soul.
Yes, and so for years I had always been encouraged to write a book, and I sort of had some doubt of myself. I was like, I write well, but I just don't think I have it to write a book. Right. I'll hire somebody else. And so February of last year, I got into a state of depression. Mm-hmm. And I remember telling some of my friends, it was shortly after John had passed away, and I told some of my friends, I'm just ready to run as far as I can and never turn back. And my friend said to me on the phone through text, there's nothing else we can do for you, and you need to go seek counseling. Well, being that I'm a counselor, and I would never discourage anyone from going to counseling, I knew I wasn't going to go. So I said, something has to give. And so for months, literally months, I sat in front of my fireplace and I began to write. And what I began to write was my autobiography. And so in less than 4 months, I had written my whole story and had published my whole story. I sort of distanced myself from a lot of people because I felt like I had to stay focused.
You had to.
I didn't need anyone questioning what I was doing. I didn't need anyone to indirectly discourage me from what I was doing. I didn't tell family. I probably only told one of my closest friends that I was writing this book. And truly, that is what helped me heal through my trauma of childhood trauma, through my hurt, through my anger, through my pain of losing my son. And so when I wrote my book, I said, I need a title. And again, that's how the title Through the Eye of the Cracked Soul came about. And the reason for that title is, and if one were to read the book, or if they're looking at the cover of the book right now, the illustration is very real. The illustration is the background of where my apartment set, where my mother was murdered in. And so the word crack is not misspelled on the book. It's a play on word, because my mother was addicted to crack. But the crack in the ground behind that fence is literally where my apartment building stood that my mother was murdered in. And so again, I'm pretty good with words, right? But I really didn't put much thought into the title. It just came. Yeah. So because it just came, I knew it was very fitting for my whole story. I mean, it sort of summarized my whole childhood from birth up until the age of 18. And so my book is very detailed about what I went through as a young child. But ultimately, my book is not about me telling my story. It's about allowing my story to be an inspiration to any woman, any child, any man, any person that feels that they can't make it. My story is an inspiration to let them know it doesn't matter what you go through. It's about using your DNA, your determination and ambition to get you to your next point of perseverance.
No. And I'm glad you said that too, to show that she's human. Like I've stated, she's doing God's work and she has her purpose. But she's still only human. She's still just LaKeisha Barron Brown. You know, at the end of the day, even though you the leader of the jungle, you're an author, you're a mother, you're a fierce person. I'm human. But listen, don't nobody got to be there at them when you staring at the wall late at night and you thinking like, damn, you just thinking about life and everything. Yeah. And if they ain't walked in your shoes, then man. And like you say, and I want to instruct people, seek counseling, but like she said, make sure it's fitting, because a lot of times I find myself in situations where they say, well, do you want to go to counseling or do you want to do that? I shouldn't say a lot of times, I'm not, but there have been times, and I'm like,
it's scary.
And I don't think, I don't like talking to people who can't identify, you know what I mean? They can't identify with me. You ain't, and no shade, but most of the time it's going to be especially in my city, it's going to be an older white man or older white woman, and we have nothing in common. I can respect your education and all that, but you might be hearing me. You're not listening. Yeah. You hear me. You putting stuff in your paper, But I tell people to seek out maybe, and like I say, the Miss LaKeisha Barron Browns of the world. She is licensed, or I shouldn't say licensed. She has a degree and all this stuff, so she know how to talk to you. But seek out somebody. Yeah. Seek out somebody who you personally respect, and you can't just go to anybody, because some people try to turn your pain into their fun, or it's go to with somebody who and because it feels better even when you talk about it to somebody who you appreciate, or you know what I mean. Because I could sit there and tell them like la da da da, and you're in the counselor's office or whatever, and it just. There's no vibe. There's no energy. You're not just pouring the information, because what happens is when you talk to somebody who really supposed to be talking to you, you start saying stuff you ain't know you had in you.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Second Half Leave, though, the jungle.
Yeah, so John was 20, so it was in the start of pandemic. And, of course, our world had been shut down, so it was new for all of us. We didn't know what to expect. All we knew was our norm that we had lived for so long. And I remember he came to me one day and he says, Mom, I know the city is shutting down. I know the world is shutting down. But I also understand what's happening to people's mental health. Yeah. And I want to do something to help with that. So I'm going to start a league outside to where we're all coming together and we're playing basketball. And so Tuesdays and Thursdays in the month of June of 2020, John started the jungle. My son passed away October 26, 2021. 3 weeks later, I started doing work at the Second Avenue Center. 3 weeks after my son passed, initially I did a COVID testing. Vaccine, because my son died of COVID, and I gave away Thanksgiving baskets to the community, because I felt like, how can I get people here but still educate them on the importance of being safe? And so, again, as I speak about what the jungle was going to be, I said, okay, it has to be more than just basketball. And so last year, January 3rd, I brought the jungle to the Second Avenue Center. And not only was it basketball, but it was a lot of community resources because I felt our community need more than just basketball. But if basketball got them there,
Right.
then I have everything else there for them.
When I hear real stuff, real always recognize real. You hear me?
Yeah.
When I hear real stuff, good God Almighty, and you just sitting here, smiling still. Oh, people don't really realize though when people when they overcome, because we make it look, you make it look like. You hear me?
Yeah.
I couldn't have told you that you, and like I say, because I don't want to misspeak and say you walking around with all that, you know what I mean, all that on your shoulder, because you I don't know if you took it all the way off your shoulders, but you've got enough off to where you can stand up and you walk again. You hear me?
Again, I say I'm at peace. This is the most peace I've had.
At peace.
I miss my son.
Oh, for
Please
sure.
don't
For sure.
misunderstand me when I say that.
Listen.
But he is my angel that's guiding me daily.
That's evident.
Yeah.
His name, that's evident.
Yeah.
That's evident.
Yeah.
I promise you they know that.
Yeah.
They know you miss your baby, because like I say, it's one thing for you to pick it like you say, take the baton, but it's another thing for you, like you say, even when you speak and say, it's not exactly how I want, that means you leaving room for improvement first and foremost. And I'm doing my best to honor my son just how he's seen it.
Yeah.
Now, and like I say, we don't know, because there might have been some times where you got to some standstills. I'm telling you, they come from the other side for us all the time. They help us all the time, and we don't realize it.
Yeah.
Like I say, I'm still trying to make sense of this. I'm here talking to LaKeisha Barron Brown. And like I say, to a lot of people, they don't know me, you might know her, but it's like, for me to get up here, and not only if I want to just give these kids a podcast, but I need positivity. I need substance. We could be on here talking about anybody's business.
Yeah, that part. The entertainment side of it.
The
right?
entertainment side of it. And like I said, I don't mind, like I say, because if something happened to me tomorrow, I was giving you everything I had today.
Right.
You know what I mean? I ain't holding none of this back. I'm being as real and getting straight to the point as I can. You know what I mean? Because the kids need this.
Yeah.
They need this story. They think drug addiction is the worst thing that can happen to them. You know what I mean?
And I tell people this often, and I've often spoke to children, right, at risk youth, at the Day Report Center, Youth Reporting Center, and I tell kids this, especially if they're dealing with parents that are on drugs. Mm-hmm. It's not that your mom and dad doesn't love you.
Right.
It's not that your mom and dad put drugs before you. Mm-hmm. The addiction is the issue, not the person.
Right.
Right. But then the most advice I give them, or the strongest advice I give them is, don't allow somebody else's story to be your story. Drug addiction was my parents' story. I just tell it.
Exactly.
I'm not, statistically, I could be somebody totally different.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it all, right?
Yeah.
I seen what it did to my family.
Right.
It could have easily been me,
Yeah.
but I was determined for it not to be.
Right.
And so I want to give kids the inspiration that it doesn't matter what you've been through. Yeah, your dad may not be there. Yeah, your dad may be a deadbeat dad because that's what somebody told you he was. But you may not know his story to know why he may be a deadbeat father. But you don't have to be.
Yeah.
All right? And so that's the inspiration I try to give to younger people is let adults' issues be adult issues.
What they say? Stay in the child's
Stay
place.
in the child's place.
You already know that.
But this is what we also need to get parents to understand.
Yeah.
Keep that child
in a
child's place.
Promise you. You all on the phone talking about with your baby daddies, da-da-da-da. The boy sitting right there next to you. The girl sitting right in the back seat. Why is you? We gotta separate, because now a lot of times these parents, they'll let the kid run them. Yeah. And like I say, I don't mind people, loving their kids, but you loving them to a fault. You know what I mean? And the fault is, when they go to turn 18 and 19,
Society ain't loving them the same. Society ain't babying them. Society ain't spoiling them like you do.
They ain't got no dog in them either.
Right.
The first time something happened, they ready to call it quits.
Yeah.
I see a lot of these boys that they might fall out from D1 basketball or football, and that was the first time they really been told, no, I done made every team in my life. I done been an all-star team. But the second they said, no, I'm good. I'll just go back to being, for what? You have so many different avenues. Why won't you fight for it? If you love it enough.
Yeah.
I
hope you don't mind me deviating.
Go ahead.
You don't have to put this in the podcast. But when I was a multicultural counselor at West Virginia State, the football coach at that time brought a young man to my office. He wasn't from here. He's from another state. Mm-hmm. And he says, Keisha, I need you to talk to him. So a young man came in my office, and he was angry. He was frustrated. I'm like, young man, what's up? Man, don't he know who I am? Blah, blah. And I said, do you know who you are?
There's the question.
He says, what do you mean? I said, you're no longer the star football player. Those girls ain't wearing your jersey, right? You're no longer the D1, but you're expecting this coach to just give you something. Suck it up.
Yeah.
You are who you are, but you haven't identified that. I said, but what you are is a man.
Yeah.
And what you do as a man, you go back and you go apologize to that coach. Now get it.
Yeah.
He probably still going to send you home.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but it's not about the sport that you need to be worried about. It's the development of a man.
Right.
And so far too often when we talk about athletes, when they don't get the D1 scholarships or they don't get where they want to get, either they get discouraged and they give up, not realizing there's still so much more to them they need to fight for.
Ain't cracked half their potential, and then they really.
I'm not getting my way, so I'm transferring.
Right. And listen, and I could totally understand, because I tell these kids too. A lot of people write people off that do basketball or football at the highest levels. They'll really sit up and call them dumb. But what I learned to teach people is there is genius in everything.
Tap into it.
You know what I mean? What makes LeBron James his body of work is a genius. You know what I mean? You can't. None of us can go out there and duplicate 20 years running.
Nothing.
And you're jumping and what? That's genius.
Yeah.
In its own right, though. You know what I mean? They got to understand sometimes you don't want to waste that genius. But other than that, when one door closes, the next one opens. And people like me and you, because I believe you're one of them too, sometimes you'll read the signs. You know what I mean? All the arrows going this way. Why don't, she wanted me to do something for the regatta. My sister in town for the regatta or whatever, and then I can help that organization. Miss LaKeisha gonna put them all three together. We about to, you know what I mean? We about to make it all go. You know what I mean? That's I promise you. So if you had to say right now, and like I said, I know we still reaching for like you say, still reaching for John's vision of it. 5 to 10 years, what's that jungle looking like?
What's the jungle looking like?
What do you envision? What would your perfect scenario be? What do you want to see?
Is that this is a community event.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for it to be a community event, the community has to invest into it from a multifaceted vision, right?
Yeah.
Second Avenue Center is where it started, but my vision is for it to be much larger than that. But when I say that, I need everyone to still recognize and appreciate what the Westside has for our community, and feed into that community to where the jungle's still situated there on the west. It's still situated there on the west side, but it's more collaboration. Yeah. I'm one that I don't own this jungle. Yeah. I'm just part of the jungle, but this jungle is for everybody. So in order for it to be for everybody has to be willing to invest in the vision of the jungle as well. So I see it being much larger. Yeah. I see it being something that's just not known here in West Virginia, that people are coming from other states to play in the jungle, that's going to put West Virginia on the map because we deserve to be there, other than just a outline on the map.
Exactly.
Yeah,
now that's beautiful. And like I say, we're going to do everything. Of course, you already know Brad or whatever. We're going to do everything here at TSG. Listen, I don't care if we got to incentivize. I don't care if we got to get out there and do some giveaways. I don't want nobody playing nowhere else. Not no out of regulation ball. If you gonna pay any tournament, anything, you come right there to the jungle.
And can I also say this? The jungle is free.
It's free.
Only thing we do every year. This is how I was able to get the J.O.B Brown Donor Advised Fund funded. Is that corporations have put into the scholarship, have put into the endowment. And so what I do on the back end is that I just contact companies and ask them would they be willing to do a sponsorship and give to the Donor Advised Fund at the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation. So again, we have had a lot of people to invest to make sure this Donor Advised Fund is situated and endowed for our community. And I have a long list, and I won't do that today, but there are several organizations here and several big businesses here in the area. But as far as the players don't have to pay a dime.
Right.
The money that is raised goes back into the Donor Advised Fund to get back out to the community. Yeah. But it's free for the players.
Yeah. And we like we say, we want to make sure though that everybody is out there, because what happens is we build stuff like this. And there's maybe some little kids around that ain't, you know what I mean, that really know sports or basketball yet. This is where they start to get inspired.
Yes.
When they can be 4 and 5 and watch dudes soar through the sky or shoot from Steph range. This is the stuff that inspires. So, you'll go out there and play at the YMCA, full-fledged grown men, be cussing each other out, and we don't want none of that over there. But I'm just saying, come here and give some passion, show it. You know what I mean? Of course, it's for the fun of it. But like I say, you already know, TSG come through. Listen, I'll put a little something. Who want to win this tournament for real? You hear me? I'll give them something to go for. It don't matter, But I definitely want to see them playing in this tournament. That was created by J.O.B Brown, and it's carried by Miss LaKeisha Barron Brown. You know what I mean? She's just carrying the flag. You know what I mean? But meanwhile, at the same time, I want y'all to read things like this book. Seek out Miss Barron Brown when you're in the community. Seek her out. Like I say, first and foremost, what happens not enough, and when people get in this line. Nobody wanted, and I know you might be getting plenty of thanks and applause, but it's certain ones, that was just because of the circumstances. Some of them, when people really come up to you, like, damn, I'm doing something. That just made it real for me, Even though, and it's a new thrill every time, because like I say, even as I go up with the little girl at Duncan, she done told me, you the dude from the podcast. I about died. Oh my God, oh my God.
Right.
But when they really come to you, and it starts to get, man, it feels so good every time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like I say, you're going to be up here back more. I hope, if you want, for sure on my behalf, you coming back up here. But, this time I just wanted to definitely make sure we got the story. You know what I mean? The story behind you. Yes, next time it will be, totally informative. We'll be talking about new stuff. But, I seen you're really big with the American Heart Association. Yes. Explain that to the viewers too. I think that's important. We don't focus on our health enough at all, until it's something bad.
Yeah. So as I talked about turning sorrow into service, which is my profit business, I also have a nonprofit business that falls up under Hearts United, and that's what the Jungle falls up under. What I did not mention in this podcast is as I talk about my children's stepfather, he is the father of my younger son. In 2018, he suddenly passed from heart disease. Yeah, he was my high school sweetheart. Suddenly passed of heart disease, and my son at that time was 9 years old. And his question to me was, it was in March of 2019. He says, "Mom, what are we going to do special for my dad's birthday?" And his dad's birthday wasn't until September. He had never asked me that question before, and so I'm thinking, well, gosh, this is far away. Yeah. But immediately, as soon as he asked me that, I'm a planner, I'm a forward thinker, I'm a planner. I said, I have to do something because my baby's asking, what am I going to do? Right. So I immediately got to work. I started doing some research, and the first group of people that I saw that I knew I wanted to get a hold of was American Heart Association, because my son's father had passed from heart disease. Mm-hmm. And so that's where our relationship began with American Heart Association, and that's how I was able to start my organization with the vision of how do we help people and how do we educate people on the importance of staying healthy. And so my organization is Hearts United Incorporated, and with the American Heart Association, with my 9-year-old son really being the visionary of this organization, we actually have been able to train people on hands-only CPR. And it allows people to understand how to basically save a life without having to do without having to do breaths. Because a lot of times people are fearful to give CPR because of the stereotypical image that if I blow into somebody's mouth, communicable diseases and so forth. So being able to do hands-only CPR allows one to understand the importance of just doing compressions until EMT comes. And so the partnership and the relationship that we've gained with American Heart Association allows for me to continuously be able to be a support for them, as well as for them to be a support of our organization as well. So that's sort of where the relationship has allowed for us to grow, is honestly because of losing my significant other, my son's father, in 2018.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to touch on that because I seen you multiple times pop up, so I knew that was importance to you. Yes. So I asked you, man, listen, big time. What's next, man? Where we go from here?
So I'm a day-to-day person, mm-hmm. right? I believe that who I am, I don't do this by myself, right? Yeah. It's a guiding force, and I just stay obedient to whatever it's next. So for me to give you that answer, I can't.
Right.
I'll just say it like this: just watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not being a conceited comment. I'm saying that because I truly don't know.
Playing it by ear.
Right. I'm just obedient. Whatever is put forth for me to do, As long as it's in the right spirit, then I will do it.
Yeah.
And so that's how I live my life day to day, is whatever the guiding force is for me to go in the next direction, I'm obedient to do so, and I just do it with patience.
Exactly. And I encourage everybody, like I say, y'all gonna love the book. Go out, get you a copy of it. Where is it?
So my book is in several different locations.
Okay.
Currently in the local area, my book is at Taylor Books, downtown Charleston. My book is also on Amazon.com, but one can also go to my website, which is www.nosorrows.com, and books can be shipped out that way as well.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Anybody, is this merch sellable? Do you sell that?
So currently,
Or I shouldn't say sell. Or do you? Is it like you participate and get a jersey, or?
So no, actually this year the jersey was for anybody that wished to buy one. It wasn't
Okay.
actually for the players.
Yes, ma'am.
So if one is interested in buying a jersey, then they would just contact me. I still currently have some jerseys left over from the game, but I do have a distributor to where if I have so many that I'm ordering, they'll make them on site for me.
Exactly.
But I have to wait a time frame for them to, like a week or two, for them to get to me. But the jerseys are always open for sale, and some of the profit does go back to the John Tavis Amari Brown Fund.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So listen, and I was about to say, with this book, like I say, she letting y'all in and giving y'all so much privy to all the darkness in her life. Make sure you meet her in real life.
That part.
Get some of the light, man, because she's a light. She's a light. You can feel it. Like I say, I'm real big into, I try not to be earthly, LaKeisha. I try not to get too big into politics, religion. I feel like all that stuff, you know what I mean? When you get in tune with self and you really start observing self, you can see when, you get auras, you get vibes, you get energy from people, you know what I mean? And it's authentic. None of this is, she ain't came up here and faked the funk about one thing or nothing, you know what I mean? Gave it to you straight. So, you better believe when she's out here doing all her big, beautiful, bright things, man, go big her up. Go show her some love. Like I say, she's somebody in the community that everybody should know or at least had a conversation with. You know what I mean? We got to give her that credit because she's a smart, hard-working, you unstoppable, fearless. Like I said, these is all adjectives, but if I'm a cap it, black woman, you hear me? And like I told you, that was I had to. That was what was important to me. Which was that part was important to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I just had Leah last episode. Leah Messer, beautiful. I love her to death. She's a good woman. But like I told you, I gotta get from who I come from.
That part.
That's what I gotta do. That's my that's how I be obedient to life, like you say. That life telling me when the first thing I got this, I didn't. That's what I thought about, straight up. How are we gonna give it back? And as I go, I see, okay, now I gotta make it more broad. Now I just gotta go for these children. You know what I mean? And I gotta make sure that they understand me. But at the same time, that is so big to me. You know what I mean? Because every other community bigs their women up. You know what I mean? I know some of them don't have the best, but most other, you don't see the Italian women, over here doing something with, no, Italian man could put big them up. You know what I mean?
Right.
It shouldn't, and like I say, y'all's demographic has been too long pressed down. You know what I mean? For no reason.
Right.
Ain't nobody really got no explanation why they undermine or disrespect or mistreat the black woman. You know what I mean? But stuff like that.
But we can't disrespect each other.
Exactly.
We can't disrespect each other.
We can't.
We have to lift each other. We as women got to be okay with saying to another black woman, "You're beautiful.
Yeah.
You look nice." And there's nothing malice about that. There's nothing sexual about that. There's no innuendos about that. Is if we can look at ourselves and tell ourselves that we're beautiful, why do we need somebody else?
Right. And then, and I will say though, the only reason why I do say big them up because it is, like I say, everybody just want to feel accepted. You know what I mean? I feel bad as a black man because I may have played a part in a younger time, just being around, and like you say, it was a predominantly white area where I was, but just being where I was as a kid, and I was so childish and had to be the comedian, but I might have been cracking on girls, and in my heart I never mean nothing by it. But I opened the door for them to do it, and now, you know what I mean? These same things that I was highlighting about her, that ain't cool to me no more.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I can't have y'all pressing down on them like that. You know what I mean?
That part.
We got to big them up. We got to big all the women up. But like I say, specifically the black women, because that, you know, it just ain't done enough, you
Right.
know? And
I
if
agree.
it, you know, and if it is, we got to be somewhere exposing ourselves. They don't want us for our intelligence, our intel. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what I believe. Y'all the strongest, smartest demographic we got on this planet. You know what I mean? But,
Appreciate that.
you know, and yes, ma'am, you already know. It's from the heart. I ain't got to lie about nothing. Any special message you want to give before I get you out of here? Because I know you're tired.
Oh, you're fine. The message that I'm going to always send to people is, again, it doesn't matter where you come from. It's about where you're choosing to go. And I must always say, determination and ambition. And again, you know, I'm going to put my own little plug out there. Again, I have on this logo shirt, but I also have other merchandise because I want people to proudly know my merchandise says determination and ambition, DNA, because we all have it.
Yeah.
It's about finding it and not being ashamed to fall upon your determination, or not being ashamed to ride on your determination and ambition, because that will get you to perseverance. So again, my words to people is, again, it does not matter where you've come from. It's about where do you want to go. Right. You may fall sometimes, you may stumble sometimes, but you can always get up if you so choose to.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, she put a bow on this thing. I ain't gonna say much more, but thank you so much, Miss LaKeisha Barron Brown, for coming and sitting down with me. Like I say, it was a must for me to get you up here, and I'm glad we got it done today. But thank you forever. And like I say, we're gonna mess around and like I say, you gonna see TSG something with that jungle. You know what I mean? We trying to attach our name to everything because
hey,
listen,
come on, let's talk about that.
I'll try to tell you, she doing something so big for these kids. We gonna go big them up even more. Get some cameras out there if we need to. We're gonna do whatever. We're gonna watch. I bet y'all the jungle is gonna blow up here.
I tentatively already got the date for next year, but I haven't really discosed that yet. So let's talk about that.
And then we'll bring them back. We'll bring them. And listen, we'll bring you back when you ready to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll make some things happen. But yeah, guys. Hey, thank you guys for tuning in and tapping in with us. And watch this.